And welcome to Veggie Patch Ideas. I'm Glenn, and today we're going to cover the subject of polytunnels, greenhouses, low tunnels, and everything in between. So the first thing that we want to look at is kind of budget, really. And everyone wants a polytunnel, or if you've got room, everyone wants a polytunnel because you can get them in any sizes, and they are fantastic at what they achieve. However, affording one is a different thing. So if you haven't got the budget for a polytunnel, and you don't need one, by the way, you can garden successfully without one. Let that be said straight off the bat. They're just really nice to have. uh, you could always start with the cheapest thing is a cloche or a piece of plastic you cover the ground with, and this will just help warm up the soil, and then you can plant either direct or put little seed trays under your cloche and let them germinate. With germination this time of year, I always like to start them off at home, indoors where they don't need light until they break the surface, and then you're good to go. So your cloche is your first and your cheapest method, and then you want to follow that up with things like low tunnels. So a low tunnel, it will extend that season a lot longer than you'd think. It's just a dome that goes over a raised bed, and I've had great success with my low tunnel this year, which I built last year, and I'll link that in the description on how exactly you build it, sizes, everything that you need. I'll link that, and it is really good. If I didn't have a polytunnel, I would have 2 or 3 low tunnels. That's definitely for sure. Now, after the low tunnel, you then want to progress onto your greenhouses. Sort of budget wise, you can pick a 6 foot by 4 foot one up for under £200, or under £300, I should say. So they're not a massive stretch on the budget, but they are a chunk. Just be careful where you put them. If it's an exposed site and it's very windy, just you want to shelter it some way with, you know, a fence panel or something that's going to break the wind first before it hits your greenhouse. Because here on this site, I've seen many and many greenhouses lose their glass or lose their plexiglass through it being just too windy for them. So if it's at home, great idea and a perfect start to your seedlings. Now with your greenhouses, they have an advantage over the polytunnel. That is, they let more light in, so it's really good for seedlings. However, you can't ventilate them as much as a polytunnel, and the temperature, it can get up to a nice warm temperature and stay there, but it can get too hot, and if you're not around, if it's remote, then you might have trouble. You may end up killing your seedlings and all the rest of it. So it does need a bit more management. So moving on, I've had this polytunnel for around, I don't know, 4 years now, and it it is brilliant, and it's kind of more of a safe space than anything. So whenever I come to the allotment, first place I come, polytunnel. If it's raining, polytunnel. Even though I've got the shed build, I'm still in the polytunnel, and I just love it in here. You can get so much done, plan so many things, and it's just a nice space to be in. It's diffused light, so this plastic, it's not clear, it's kind of a diffused white. So the plant leaves, when you're starting them off, they don't get scorched as much for a start as a greenhouse, and you've got 2 net curtains either side, so netting and then the bottom, and it's very easy to control airflow. So at the minute we've got a breeze coming straight through the polytunnel, and this again is good for seedlings, because like we said on my last video, having that breeze over seedlings, or an airflow over seedlings, stops them going green and stops you getting problems further on. So that's one of the very major pluses with the polytunnel. Or also the heat, it doesn't fluctuate as much. It's kind of, it's a stabler heat because you've got the airflow through, and when sun's on it, it heats up, but it cools down quite slowly. So it's nice in that respect. And the main benefit of the polytunnel is you can have a much larger growing surface. So you've got your hanging baskets, you've got your beds, and if you go for the polytunnel with the trellises as well, you've got all these workable tables as well. So you've got a lot more growing space than a traditional smaller greenhouse. And budget wise, clearly this is the top of your budget and the top end. People always say, what happens if the cover gets blown off or destroyed? Then you can just replace it, and they're kind of really easy to replace, by the way, so don't be scared off by that. The polytunnel just over there, believe it or not, it's 15 years old and it's still on its first cover. Now, there is a gaping hole in the side of it which is covered up with sellotape, but it's still going, and in the spirit of allotments, we mend it and make do. So hopefully I'll get a good few more years out of this one before I need a new cover, but you never know, do you? So it is what it is. And with the larger greenhouses as well, you know, you think they're in for life, but you can lose panes of glass and have to replace them. So that's a added cost. So overall, I'm really happy with the polytunnel. If I didn't have this in my life, the next best thing, I would move down to a greenhouse, simply because I sow far too many seeds. And if I didn't have a greenhouse, I would sow my seeds at home, put them on windowsills, and I would use things like low tunnels, where they're really good and they've surprised me how well they've done. And I'll take you outside now and we'll have a look. But essentially, I'm going to change. I've got one bed with a low tunnel in, but I'm going to put 4 beds with either a low tunnel or a covered lid. So it just warms that soil up, and they'll be great for things like peppers, lettuce, and all my spring green type veg in there, and they'll supplement the polytunnel nicely. So as you can see, this is one I built earlier and it's fantastic. So we've got all our beetroots, our lettuces, our spring onions, and some spinach. We're all doing wonderful in here, and this really does extend the season. We're in February now. The whole plot's dead apart from the low tunnel. Just to recap, if it was budget wise, I would probably go low tunnel first, greenhouse, and then polytunnel. If you're new to the allotment or new to growing vegetables, and you want kind of everything now, I would say hold off. Okay, hold off and see what you like growing, and see sort of where you want to go, and how well you're doing on your plot. After a year and you absolutely love growing tomatoes, cucumbers, and all the rest of it, and you've got a small greenhouse and you're doing well, then move on to the polytunnel. Okay, you may get the polytunnel and find out in the summer that they are quite a lot of maintenance. You do need to come up very often, you need to water them, and it's a never-ending job. So if you haven't got time on your hands and you'll be always pampering to a polytunnel, maybe it's not time for you yet. So there are things to consider, and you'll know yourself when you're ready. If you've got the space and you're planning it, or if you just want to experience a polytunnel, ask someone up the allotment if you can have a look around theirs, get some ideas on what they're doing in there, and then see if it's for you. So I hope this has helped and not confused you more than it should, but it's questions I get asked all the time. So I really do hope this video helps you out. And if you like this sort of content, please take a look around the channel There's loads on there now. And if you like what you see, please subscribe, and we'll see you next. So if you haven't got time on